everybody. Welcome to another episode of Barry Share. This is actually episode number 7, and we're so excited about being able to be with you. And tonight, Nicole and I are going to be talking about peace faking.
Peace faking.
So we've been in this conflict series, and so here comes my partner in crime.
Not a peace faker.
Not a peace faker.
More like a peace breaker.
Well, and that's kind of a straw poll that, we have fun with a lot of times when we get with small groups is, I think God wires us all differently. And, when conflict comes, we have a tendency, usually a dominant tendency.
Right.
And usually when there comes in, conflict is going to come in, then usually people either tend to run away from conflict, that they have escape responses, and so they're not actually practicing peacemaking, they're practicing peace faking.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, and I would say that's probably my MO.
Peace faking.
Is peace faking.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to pretend like everything's okay, and sometimes it can get awkward. But I'll just, we're all good, and I'll have a tendency to sweep things under the rug, even sometimes enable people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, get codependent or whatever, and I'm recognizing that doesn't please God, and it doesn't solve the conflict either. But on the other hand, the other side of the street is peace breaking.
Yeah.
And honey, do you know anything about peace breaking?
A few things. Yeah, I would probably say that I am more on the other side of the spectrum. My tendency is to attack more, and if there's an issue, like go right to it, even a little maybe aggressively. But peace breaking and peace faking are not peacemaking.
Right.
And so we wanted to talk a little bit about peace faking, that side of it, and then in subsequent videos we would like to talk about peace breaking, and then really get to what is peacemaking. Blessed are the peacemakers.
For they shall be called the sons of God.
The sons of God. So.
And the daughters of God.
Yeah, whatever. I'm good with it. It's all good. As long as we the kids, of God. But that's something I think that both of us have really worked hard on to come when you're on this side of the spectrum and I'm on this side of the spectrum, to come more to the middle where peacemaking is. And it takes an effort because, we both have different families of origin, and we both have different ways that we grew up learning how to deal with conflict. Right. And so when you come together in a relationship, you have to you see things that you wouldn't normally see in your own family of origin. And so we've been able to kind of experience that in our marriage, and it's been a good thing for us, I think. So tonight we just want to talk about peace faking. What is peace faking? Are you a peace faker? Here we want to give you a few ways that you might be able to say, like, wow, that might be me. I might tend to sweep things under the rug. I might tend to do these things. And then really, how can you break out of it? We are sorry that we are running late tonight. We would love to tell you that we had a whole bunch of stuff going on, but we had a whole bunch of stuff going on. I mean, we've been just kind of rocking and rolling these last few days, and we found ourselves on the other side of town at like 8:30, and we had to get back and then put our kids to bed. So thank you for joining with us this evening at 9:30 instead of 9, and we are just going to make the most of it. We're not going to keep you guys too long. We know you got to go to bed and get those kids. Make sure your kids are in bed and all that stuff. So
let's kind of put this in perspective. Last week we talked about the process of forgiveness. Yeah. This is in a series of conflict resolution. We talked about that there are 4 ways to know if you've truly forgiven someone.
Right.
And so those are the 4 promises.
The 4 promises
of forgiveness. And what we've got to realize, though, is that, in terms of us figuring out how to forgive, sometimes we have to learn what forgiveness is not.
Right.
Okay. And a lot of times in the name of forgiveness, we'll say, oh yeah, I forgave that person.
Yeah, he's totally forgiven.
Yeah. But like we talked about last week, unless you're feeling the full weight of it in your hand, unless you actually felt the anger and the sadness, and then you've actually grieved the loss, then you're not holding it enough to authentically actually forgive and let it go. And until you recognize that somebody actually paid the price for that, and then because of what Jesus has done, you can actually pray and confess amazingly powerful things like, I forgive this person who has wronged me, who's hurt me, and they owe me nothing.
So powerful.
It's just like,
awesome.
It's amazing. And
I think what happens too, though, is that people don't really go through the whole process of forgiveness. And so really they are practicing peace faking.
Yeah.
They are saying peace, peace where there is no peace.
Yes.
Because how can there really be peace until there's actual forgiveness?
Right.
And how can there be forgiveness until you actually hold what you have lost from that interaction, from that offense in your hands? And so, And
how can you have real peace without the Prince of Peace actually paying the price?
Paying the price. That someone, the
peace.
justice has been served.
Right.
Because, it's hard. I think I really and truly don't understand how people who don't know the Lord can
truly forgive.
True forgiveness and true peace in their hearts. So if you didn't get a chance to see last week's, I would encourage you, go find episode 6 on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel at berryshare.com, and go check that out so that you can understand the process of forgiveness and the 4 promises of forgiveness, that if you can answer affirmatively to all 4 of those promises, that means that you truly have forgiven somebody. But if you are looking at those 4 promises and you're like, I don't think I can do that, then maybe you should really go back and go back through the process of forgiveness to find out where it is that you are misfiring in that process, so that you can get to true forgiveness. So if you've not done that, then a lot of times you will be a peace faker. And what is a peace faker, Brandon?
Well, peace faking. So when I think about peace faking, I actually go back to like 7th grade science class, and I remember there in science class they were talking about how whenever there is an urgent situation and there's danger, then all animals, all humans, we all have a reaction.
Yeah.
And you remember what the reaction is called? It's called fight or flight.
Right.
And they are natural reactions to danger, to conflict.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're talking about, is some people's nature, and I would say their human nature, even their sin nature, is to be a fighter. Okay? Some people say, are you a lover or a fighter? And I think that's kind of a way to say, hey, my tendency is to be a fighter. Whenever I face danger, my tendency is to actually come back at it and punch somebody in the face. Or is your tendency to duck and dodge and maybe run away? And so I think that's what we're talking about, maybe even playfully, that believe it or not, even football player as I am, my tendency, at least in social situations, in emotional situations, is to duck and dodge.
Right. And mine is to take my earrings off and
knuck if you buck.
Yeah,
right?
Break somebody's leg.
That's right.
It's all good. But I think
fear the cleats. That's all it is.
Stop it. That was so many years ago. But anyway, we wanted to share a little bit about what peace faking is. And really, peace faking is trying to escape. It's an escape response from conflict. So when something happens to you, you've been offended in some way, your relationship with somebody is going south, then a peacemaker is likely to try to escape that. And their escape response is happening because you may be more interested in avoiding unpleasant people or avoiding unpleasant circumstances than in really resolving the differences. And so it's just easier to keep that person at arm's length. It's just easier to go around them the opposite way when you see them coming. It's just easier to not answer your phone or not answer a text. It's easier to not be in social situations with them. In families, it looks like it's just easier to not go to Christmas with your family because you don't want to deal with, your random brother-in-law who's always angry. And my brother-in-law's, I don't think I've hardly ever seen him angry, so that's not a real life situation. But, so you would rather avoid it than go in and really resolve the differences. And so
so let's talk about 3 ways that people have a tendency to avoid or to escape. And so those 3 ways are, number 1, and you can think about this as like a slippery slope. Okay, so if peacemaking occurs kind of at the top of the mountain, okay, and that's where really God wants us to dive in to those steps of that's where forgiveness is, that's where mediation is, reconciliation is, negotiating, like all of that. We'll unpack all of those later. And by the way, if you really want to do your homework and figure out even what are some of our sources, we talked about healing and restoring the heart by Denise Boggs. But we're also pulling a lot of this from Ken Sand's book, The Peacemaker. And he's got a great website, peacemaker.net. And so if you go on there, you can actually click and see under his resources, there's something called the slippery slope of conflict. And so up on the plateau is where you want to stay. That's the peacemaking part. On this side, there's peace breaking. And then on the other side is peace faking. And on either side, it's a slippery slope. Both sides end in death. Okay, and so on the peace breaking side, which we're not going to get into, but it starts with assault. Okay, then it goes to litigation. You're going to ruin their name legally. And then ultimately, it's murder. Okay, and those are all peace breaking things. But in peace faking, it's denial, it's flight, it's running away, and ultimately it also ends in death on the peace faking side, in suicide. And so let's unpack those a little bit. Let's talk about denial. Okay, let's say somebody has got a conflict, and what does living in denial look like?
I would guess I would describe living in denial as pretending that a problem does not exist. So if Uncle Fred drinks 12 beers a day and Aunt Ethel turns her face around and doesn't really think it's a big deal. It's no big deal. He has a couple beers. If he's throwing stuff around in a drunken fit, but she's just kind of covering up for him, or just doesn't even really think it's that big of a deal because she's gotten so used to it, or I don't know why people have denial, but basically you're pretending that the problem doesn't exist. And so whether it's an anger issue, substance abuse, even just the way personalities rub against each other, and if you just pretend it doesn't exist, then you are in denial. You could be in denial. So what are some things?
And if you're in denial, you actually have a danger of being what Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend in the Boundaries book say is being an enabler. And so every abuser needs an enabler. Every addict needs somebody who's a codependent who is going to prop them up and allow them to remain in that state of being the abusive one, being the one who's got the addiction. And if you are a person that has a tendency towards denial, then it's dangerous, because if you stay in that peace faking realm,
right.
you're actually, it may sound like you're being loving, because it may sound like you're being
overlooking an offense,
or that you
seeing
might
the best in somebody,
right, or that you're turning the other cheek, and and a lot of people, misunderstand what real love is, because they think that following Jesus means that they just need to be a doormat.
Yeah.
And they need to let people run all over them, take
right.
advantage of them, turn the other cheek, just give to those who ask, and just and you know what? The Bible does say turn the other cheek, and the Bible does say give to those who ask, but it also says if you don't work, you don't eat.
Right.
It also says everyone should carry his own load.
Right.
And so love doesn't mean that you always acquiesce
right.
to what the addict says that he or she needs, especially if they're trying to use some scripture to manipulate you.
Yeah, that's totally wrong, man.
But I'm telling you, and I'm telling you, as a recovering peace faker, I have to be on guard against those codependent tendencies.
Yeah.
And to say, okay, am I really loving this person? Am I willing to come out from behind my fear of how they might react to me? And am I loving that person and being willing to actually have a fierce conversation, a peacemaking conversation, or am I going to pretend like I love them and just placate them and actually enable them to remain the
abuser that they are?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about, people in a business world or in any kind of employment circumstance, and let's say your boss is like, he's saying little white lies to clients. He's promising things that he knows he's never going to be able to actually deliver on. He's fudging the numbers on the TP reports.
Well, no, we were. I mean, this is funny today. It was like we were trying. We're in the process of getting a new vehicle, and so we were at a car dealership, and I remember asking this guy like how many miles per gallon does this car get? And it was kind of a heavy car.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking, it's probably, it might be below 20, it might be, but there's no way. I mean, it might on the highway get kind of upper 20s. But, man, I was like, what's the miles per gallon? And I mean, like, without batting an eye,
he's like...
35 miles per gallon.
In the city.
In the city. And we were like... And so what did Nicole do?
Well, I went and Googled that crap because I was like, I'm not going to just let you sit here and bulldoze us with numbers and things that are not, true at all. And so, but he had a new guy working for him.
Right.
That new guy is watching his boss try to close a deal, try to, work this client, work this customer. And so, that guy, that kid may be very impressionable. If he is a peace faker, then he's going to watch his boss make exaggerations, make promises that aren't true about certain vehicles, and he's going to start to see that happening the more and more he gets to know the business. And if he's a peace faker, he's never going to say anything about it, and he's never going to do anything about it. He's just going to allow that to happen. And just kind of go with it. Now, if he's a peace breaker, he's going to be like me, and he's going to be the one on his Google and be like, nope, actually it says it's, 18 miles a gallon?
Yeah, it was
16.
It was
something low. It was like half of what he said.
Yeah, it was like 16 to 22. And she totally called him out.
I totally called him out. Hilarious. I was like, don't be that. So anyway.
It was like, dude, we got Google. Like,
don't try to pull the wool over my eyes. But think about your life. Is there something in your life that you are making excuses for, that you're denying the truth, denying that a problem exists because you don't want to rock the boat? See, there's 4 rules of a dysfunctional family. And when I say a dysfunctional family, it may be nuclear family. It may be like a workforce
like a
family,
team, like a family, a workforce team.
It could be a team that you're on. It could be a church family. It could be, whatever.
Any group of people.
Group that you find yourself in. These are some four rules of a dysfunctional family. Okay, number one is they don't talk. Okay, you're not going to talk about the situation. You're certainly not going to stand up to somebody if you think they're wrong.
Or especially if they're the one that's in authority. And I'm just curious, was that rule in your house growing up?
You never talk against daddy or mom.
Like, I mean, if they said something, I mean, are you allowed to talk about that? If you felt like, mom or dad did something that was out of line, I mean, is it ever acceptable for you to be like, hey, Dad, like,
Can you explain how you got to that point?
Yeah,
or with respect.
Yeah.
I mean, even with respect.
When you did that, man, that made me feel scared to death. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
did you mean, like, is that okay? Like,
Right.
I mean, but most families can't have that conversation.
No, because
can't.
they're dysfunctional.
Right, because they're going to just
Work teams.
clam up.
Yeah. Work
and
teams, bosses,
pretend.
churches.
Yeah, churches.
I mean, if your
pastors,
pastors, spewing out stuff that's not quite right from the Bible,
right? I mean,
just a little off,
Yeah.
but he keeps going further and further and further, and oh my gosh, all of a sudden you find out it's really benefiting his pocketbook. Can you say something? Can you talk to somebody about it? And that is, I mean, if you can't, then you're in a dysfunctional church. You're in a dysfunctional family. So don't talk, don't feel is the second rule. So I don't want, in a dysfunctional family, you're not allowed to have your own feelings. Okay? What you feel is not as important as what the leader
Right.
usually feels.
Right.
And so since you're not the leader, your feelings don't count.
Right.
What's the third one?
Yeah.
Unless you talk.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking the whole don't feel thing. I mean, you may have had a boss I remember having a boss that told me this one time. It was like, you exist to make me look good.
Yeah, I've had a boss who told me that one time.
Yeah, me too.
Your job is to make me
Your
look
job
good.
is to make me look good.
Don't tell people that, y'all.
Yeah, please.
I forgive you if my
Yeah.
boss is watching right now. I just want to let you know.
Yeah.
I'm calling you out on Facebook, but I forgive you. I need to go back and the 4 promises of forgiveness. But no, I mean,
Yeah.
how do you feel? How did you feel when
Yeah.
that happened?
I mean, we've got to realize that we've got to give people permission to feel.
Yeah.
And perception is reality.
Right.
And your feelings are important. And treating people right is important.
Yeah.
And doing the right thing, even if it has a consequence,
Right.
is important. It's
Yeah.
part of our integrity. It's part of following Jesus.
Integrity, doing the right thing even when no one's watching.
And it's in an employment situation, or if it's in a family unit, there's a certain thing that's called being a 360-degree leader. And there's a way to where you can actually lead up.
Mm-hmm.
You can just be who you are as a person of integrity, and you can ask questions with honor.
Yeah.
that can just and not necessarily with a critical tone, but with a curious tone and an honoring tone. But just asking a question that can actually bring some challenge.
Yeah.
And so, don't talk, don't feel. Number 3 is don't trust.
Don't trust. Don't trust anyone. You have trust issues, and you can't trust. You don't know who to trust. If you're in a family who's dysfunctional, you're going to have trust issues. If you can't trust your mom and dad, if you can't trust your siblings, who can you trust? And so you're going to see that if you're in a dysfunctional family unit, then you're going to have trust issues with almost all of your relationships until you work through that grieving losses. And then number 4 would be don't rock the boat.
And so that kind of plays into a little bit what we were talking about before.
Yeah.
Was if the authority figure is ever blatantly wrong,
Right.
is anyone ever going to challenge them?
Right.
And I think there's a way to do that with honor. But that's dysfunctional if you can't ever rock the boat, if you can't talk, if you can't feel, and you can't trust. And in that kind of and most families are dysfunctional.
Yeah,
Most families have addicts and codependents.
They have some parts of these things.
Most families
at some point in their life. Maybe not
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes as you're growing and you're learning and
Yeah,
stuff.
hopefully.
Absolutely. I mean, I would even say that our family, with just me, you, and our kids, like we have points where we're dysfunctional.
We'll have moments, you know, or longer.
Yeah, mostly functional, but anyway.
Hopefully. We'll interview our kids 10 years from now.
Yeah, when they're in counseling, they'll let us know that we were super dysfunctional, I'm sure. But so there's denial. These are the flight things. There's denial, and then the next one's flight, which is really running away or avoiding conflict. So examples of flight would be something like
Max is making his weekly
Max.
appearance.
What's up, Max? You just want to be famous. I see you. Yeah. So examples of flight are, you know, I can't stand this. This is too much pressure. They don't like me. I'm quitting my job. Maybe filing for divorce. Maybe you're pulling away from a relationship because you just don't want to deal with conflict. Yeah. Or maybe it's something like, you know what? I don't like the way this church does church, so I'm leaving. Yeah. And you don't leave well. You're not leaving because you were called elsewhere. Right. You're leaving because there's an issue and you don't want to deal with the issue. And so you change churches. Right.
And a lot of people do that. A lot of people say, oh, the Lord is leading me to blah, 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 blah. But really, they're just hurt and they don't know how to deal with conflict. Right. They don't know how to practice peacemaking. Yeah. And so what they're doing is they're practicing peace faking.
Yeah, we're peace faking. I'd rather leave than have to cause a problem. Or rock the boat, or talk to the pastor who never allows anyone to talk to him, or something like that.
And a lot of that is rooted in fear, and a lot of people, especially in churches, will put their own fears or whatever was associated, the ick with their own father in their family of origin. A lot of times it's put on the pastor. Yeah. And so even if the pastor is a good guy and would respond well to the conflict, a lot of people who grew up in dysfunctional families where you couldn't talk and you couldn't rock the boat and you couldn't trust, they'll just, you know, as soon as it gets weird, they're going to peace out. Yeah. And they're going to go down to the next church down the road.
And do the same thing.
And do the same thing.
And they're going to have continued cycles of this, and they're never going to get polluted. They're never going to get planted and rooted. Polluted.
I like that.
I'm going to put that up as a meme soon.
Polluted.
But planted and rooted in a church. And so that really is a great way for Satan to stunt our spiritual growth by doing that. And so you've got denial, you've got flight, and then the most severe case, I guess, of flight would be suicide. And that's really the ultimate escape, is that when all hope is lost in that person's mind, and they really think that there is no way to resolve the conflict or no way that they would be able to enter back into a specific relationship. It could just be a relationship with their own emotions, even. You know, then they take their own life.
It's the ultimate escape response.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm going to just escape from all of this.
Yeah, it's not worth it. And that's the saddest thing, because it leaves so many people who probably would have been really willing to walk through hard things with that person, grieving, you know, and confused. And so we just wanted to share, you know, peace faking is not what God had in mind. When Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. He wants us to have, there is a better way, and we will share it. And like we said, you can always go to peacemaker.net and check that out for yourself if you like, or if you'd just like to see us teach about it every once in a while, we'd love to do that. But we appreciate you guys being with us tonight. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about peace faking? We don't want to keep you guys too late.
I think that's it. I mean, we've got, at the end of the day, I think it's just good to unpack and to shine some light on what not to do. Right. And a lot of times, you know, we have to recognize that we're sick before we're willing to actually take the medicine. Yeah. And so, I know for me, I've had to look and take a real courageous look in the mirror and say, you know what? There's a lot of times where I'm a peace faker. I'm not a peacemaker. But then I courageously hear Jesus calling to me and saying, but my son, I have called you to be a peacemaker. And I will give you the strength to come out from behind the walls that you've built up to protect yourself and to keep yourself from pain. And to come out from amongst the baggage and come out from the role where you're not allowed to speak, you're not allowed to rock the boat, and come out from all of that fear and stand up in faith and in love and be a peacemaker.
That's right.
And guys, I'm telling you, like, if I can do that, you can too.
Yeah.
You can come out from behind your fear, and you can be a peacemaker, and you can be called a child of God. So, honey, this was great.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining with us. We look forward to being with you again soon. And as always, you can always check out our website for more helpful articles, videos, blogs, and resources at berryshare.com. Check out also our website, our YouTube video page, and
here on Facebook.
Facebook, Instagram. There are lots of ways that we would love to connect with you. If you have questions, you can always catch us at berryshare@gmail.com. And that's about it. So we look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.
All right. Love you guys. Peace.